Good evening, one last time from St. John's Caribou Field, where we've got the final game of the opening day just about to get underway between the Kelly's Pub Molson Bulldogs and the Saskatoon Saskatchewan Angels. Blair Setford, Chris Abbott on Ballpark Broadcasting and Sports Canada TV with you for the nightcap. And Chris, we're expecting a good one here between the Angels and Kelly's Pub.
Yeah, there's what we've seen today is kind of two tiers of teams settling out in the tournament, and both these teams would be in the top tier. Both these teams are going to be looking for double life come Saturday morning. I mean, so used to saying Friday night at this tournament, but Saturday morning is when the double life games start now, and we got a great pitching matchup here under the lights in Colin Walsh and Trevor Ethier. Two teams are 1-0, so real good game for our fans here in the nightcap.
Yeah, looking to end it on a high note indeed. For the visitors from Kelly's Pub, it'll be the pitcher, Colin Walsh, leading off. He'll be followed by second baseman Daniel Dalton. Matthew Waugh bats in the 3 spot, playing center field. Ryan Kirk catching and batting cleanup. Brian Clark at first base. Jeff Evely, the shortstop. Stephen Gesso is the designated player. Mark Lewis is over at third base, and Eddie Heffron is in left field. Andrew Wade is in right and not batting. He's in the default spot. We'll set the defense for the Saskatoon Angels. Casey Brooks, Raylan Robertson, and Brian Evan Oshko from left to right across the outfield. Jesse Osika, Cole Reed, Brett Cassavant, and Brett Casey around the horn in the infield. And the aforementioned Trevor Ethier will be pitching to Derek Arseny for the team in black, the Saskatoon Angels.
Yeah, they put up a spanking really this morning against the Kitchener-Hallman Cubs. And it was actually a little bit of an eye-opener, I think, for most people watching this Angels team. But, of course, they've got Devin McCullough and Trevor Ethier, a 1-2 punch on the mound, just as good as anybody here in the tournament.
Colin Walsh batting leadoff, and it's not often that you see a pitcher batting near or at the top of the order, but we got a couple of them tonight as Devin McCullough and Trevor Ethier, both pitchers on this Angels squad. They'll bat 3-4 in the order for the Angels, but Colin Walsh right at the top of the shop for Kelly's Pub, and he takes a ball from Trevor Ethier, leading things off here in the nightcap.
Absolutely, Colin Walsh leading off when you have maybe the top leadoff hitter in the world on your team, and Matthew Waugh, at least he's in the conversation, and but he'll be batting in the middle of the order for Kelly's Pub.
That is a crowded conversation when you talk about the top leadoff batters in the world. Matthew Waugh, Benny Anoka, and perhaps the best of them all right now, certainly Bradley Ezekiel. This one is fouled back out of play and onto the dugout. Takes a couple of Cubs players by surprise over on Diamond 2. It's Kitchener-Hallman Cubs, and from Nova Scotia, the East Hants Mastodons in the nightcap over on Diamond 2. We'll keep an eye on that game as well for you. But our nightcap here, of course, Kelly's Pub and the Saskatoon Angels. Blair Setford and Chris Abbott, if you're just getting in on the stream with us on Sports Canada TV and Ballpark Broadcasting. Glad you're with us. It's been an eventful day here at Caribou Park in St. John's.
Yeah, absolutely, and it's been all mercy rule games over here on Diamond 1. I don't expect one in this game, but hey, you never know. That's why they play the game. And Blair, special hello to all our fans in Saskatoon, where it's supper time right now, about 20 minutes to 6 in the evening, and hello to everyone in Newfoundland. The prime time game, 10 after 9.
Well, save us a plate if you're in Saskatoon and in Ontario. Put the Jays game on mute and put this one on your computer and stay with us.
Absolutely no trouble for me ever to put a Jays game on mute.
Swinging and foul back again by Walsh out onto Diamond 2.
Another one bounding across the mound in front of the Kitchener pitcher. So that's something else to keep in your head while you're dealing with Nick Shales and the East Hants Mastodons. Yeah, that's right. Nick Shales and the East Hants Mastodons. No, that's the Australian Nick Shales, but he is a Canadian resident now, and he's playing at the Nationals.
Well, under the residency rules, he was here by the deadline date, as here's a hard shot right back up the middle by Colin Walsh. So a leadoff single for Mr. Walsh, and the Kelly's Pub Molson Bulldogs are in business.
And hey, that's why he bats leadoff. Colin Walsh, like a lot of the leadoff hitters in the game, no longer just slappers. These guys can bunt, hit singles, or hit for power. And the guys you talked about in Ben Anoka and Brad Ezekiel, Colin Walsh, Matthew Waugh, they can all do that.
So that'll bring up Daniel Dalton. And boy, you talk about a guy who just about exploded onto the tournament circuit and the major scene this year. Daniel Dalton spent the summer in Wisconsin with the Circle Tap Dukes and really had an impressive season over there. An eye-opener for sure.
Interesting situation for Daniel Dalton. He middle of the summer, he said, you know what, I'm going to make a go of this. And he went down. Circle Tap gave him a one tournament tryout. And last time we saw him with Circle Tap, he was batting second and playing second base.
Had a great ISC World Tournament, and now here back in Newfoundland with Kelly's Pub. And I'm expecting, and I told him at the when I saw him after the tournament, that I'm expecting big things out of this kid for the future, because he's got a good swing. He plays the game the right way. I don't know if he's always going to be a second baseman, but he can definitely play the game.
You know what? He's a third baseman by trade, and he's a heck of a good third baseman because he's fearless, and he'll put his chest in front of the ball just as often as he will the glove. But you know what? He adapted to second base with Circle Tap, and hats off to him for it. And maybe he'll help get us into the Boys of Summer.
A very good tournament. I know we've actually got a standing invite to get down there at some point, so we'll put that one on the bucket list. But right now, it's the 2016 Canadian Men's Fastball Championship, and here's a chopper that's going to get through the 5.5 hole, and Colin Walsh is going to go coast to coast, a slide into third base. Up to second goes Colin Walsh, and Kelly's Pub threatening here right away in the top of the first inning.
Excellent base running by Daniel Dalton following the throw into third base. And he took off and took the extra bag at second. And now there's two guys in scoring position for Matthew Waugh.
Well, good job there by Colin Walsh. Eyes wide open coming around second base. Picked up his third base coach and really only slowed down for half a step and then made it into third base with the slide and brings up Matthew Waugh. We talked about some of the most dangerous hitters in the world. This guy is definitely right there with all of them. Power to all fields, gap to gap, can hit the ball out of the park, can also put it down and beat out that 12-foot drag bunt on the infield. And this one is laced out to center on a line, but caught at the knees, and the tag and the throw, and they inadvertently cut that off. I thought they'd be better off letting that come to the plate, but it was actually cut off by Daniel Dalton, who made a good turn, but I think if that goes through, it's a lot closer at the plate.
Well, absolutely, and I don't know if I've ever heard of a sacrifice line drive before, but there it was, a screamer from Matthew Waugh. And no, Waugh is not from the French west coast of Newfoundland and Labrador. A driving force behind Team Quebec for a number of years, and they're not back this year after hosting in 2015.
Well, I think just a one-year pause for the program in Quebec as they're going to reset, and I certainly expect to see them back here at the Canadian Men's Tournament in the future. They've got so many bright lights as they won the Canadian Juniors this year for the first time, and they've got a number of definite prospects coming up through their minor ball system. Big swing from Ryan Kirk, and here's another guy who has made his way to the tournament circuit with his buddy Colin Walsh and playing up in the Midwest.
Yeah, they played for the Kegel Black Knights out of Fargo, North Dakota this year. They had a good run in the tournament. Of course, Brady Woods and Colin Walsh tag teaming on the mound. And Ryan Kirk caught and batted in the middle of the lineup. Not bad for your first World Tournament.
No, I thought he did a really good job. I was very impressed with Ryan when we were down here earlier in the summer for the Invitational Tournament on the Canada Day weekend. And Ryan, one of those kids that certainly was impressing and opening up some eyes. There's just so much great talent here in Newfoundland, and everybody is familiar with the Bolins and the Clearys, and of course, the days gone by, the Colin Abbotts and the Ward Gosses, but John Kelly that you guys were talking about in the previous game. Ryan Kirk is just another example of that homegrown talent that just keeps coming out of the St. John's City League here.
Well, on deck is Brian Clark, and he is a fantastic hitter, another guy that could easily jump on any team on the circuit, and he'll show us that here this week. And Brian's father, Huey, is the third base coach for Kelly's Pub.
So 1-0 for Kelly's Pub. They jump out to an early lead over the Saskatoon Angels just in the top of the first inning, as this one is fouled off out onto Diamond 2, or did that one catch the screen? There is a screen in between the light standards here that does catch a lot of the balls that head over towards Diamond 2 and vice versa, but not all of them.
And as I looked over to that screen, Blair, and I see a light rain falling.
Hard single right back up the middle. Easily scoring. Dan Dalton comes all the way around from second base. He scores easy, and 2-0 now for Kelly's Pub. And certainly Trevor Ethier is not fooling anybody on the Kelly's Pub lineup right now.
Well, some good hitters on that Kelly's Pub team, and another one coming up in Brian Clark. He can spray it to all fields. Has some power, but he's more of a singles guy, looping him over the outfield. And the Kelly's Pub team, who were silver medalists in 2014 in Charlottetown with Kyle Linton and Robbie Green on the mound. Kyle's back with them again this year, is he not?
He is indeed. They've also got Donnie King, who can toe the mound in a pinch if they need him to.
Donnie King had a big win Canada Day weekend.
Fouled straight back to the screen. Good hard cut by Brian Clark. I remember talking with Brian at the tournament at the time, and he had an injured foot. He had grounded a ball off of his toe. I'm not sure whether it was cracked or broken, but he hobbled around most of the weekend there.
Shortstop, number 77, Dan Mitchell.
Run the hands up to bunt, and it gets right by the catcher, Derek Arseny. So easy trot up to second base for Ryan Kirk.
Kirk out on second with one out, and should Brian Clark not reach base, he will be eligible to run for the catcher Kirk. Of course, the ISF Softball Canada 2-out rule, and I don't know when I'm going to stop saying ISF.
Well, you're not alone in that one. For many years, of course, the WBSC, the World Baseball Softball Confederation, was the International Softball Federation, the ISF. And the WBSC is a bit of a mouthful. Inside from Trevor Ethier. Trevor, of course, the veteran from Western Canada, played a number of years in the Midwest for teams like Circle Tap, where Daniel Dalton is playing now.
Yeah, Saskatoon.
Also
Aspen.
with the Saskatoon Aspen and Tears. This one is belted out to center field. Back to the track, making the run on the grab is center fielder Raylan Robertson. A good over-the-shoulder catch. Tagging up, going to third, is Ryan Kirk. But that's some good leather out there by Raylan Robertson. That was about a 262-foot shot from Brian Clark. A home run any other night when the fences are 250. But here, this week, they're 265.
And on top of it, they're 6 feet tall, and they're not the breakaway fences, unless, of course, you were here yesterday with the 120-kilometer-an-hour winds that took down all the fences and forced a delay in the schedule today. But Raylan Robertson went a long way to get that ball, Blair, and he saved a run for sure for his Angels team.
Foul back to the screen by Jeff Evely.
And you talk about guys in the circuit and guys that played with Aspen and in Saskatoon. Jeff Evely, for a long time, would have been teammates with Trevor Ethier.
Yeah, those two playing out in Saskatoon. And Jeff Evely, of course, a veteran.
And Jeff shines in this tournament. I don't quite know what it is, but he's a good ball player. But when it comes to the Nationals, especially here in 07, he played for the Robotham, Mackay, and Marshall team. It was the Newfoundland team then, and he was just outstanding.
Ball just off the corner from Ethier. 2-1 on Evely, the veteran. Stephen Jesso, designated player, is on deck for Kelly's Pub. They're out in front 2-0 and threatening with Brian Clark running for Ryan Kirk out at third base.
Well, you talk about Stephen Jesso on deck, another guy that's been around the game forever, would have played on the circuit with the Halifax Keiths and a couple other teams as well. And I know a lot of people listening in will say, Stephen Jesso still playing ball. He certainly is.
Chased upstairs, but able to foul that back into the screen. So 2 balls, 2 strikes still on Jeff Evely.
Evely plays shortstop for Kelly's Pub. He used to be a fantastic shortstop. He is now a good shortstop. With age, his arm has given out on him a little bit, and we saw a bit of that on Canada Day weekend here.
Well, who among us hasn't suffered from that?
Oh, no, get in line. I mean, 2 of us aren't playing anymore, so, but he's always been a great stick.
So full count on Evely looking to extend this inning. Already been a profitable one for Kelly's Pub. Called strike 3. Down goes Jeff Evely. Trevor Ethier shuts the door, but not before allowing 2 as Colin Walsh and Daniel Dalton both score. And for Kelly's Pub, it's a great start. We'll come to the home half of the first inning. Saskatoon Angels coming to the plate. So as we get set for the bottom of the first inning, Saskatoon Angels coming to the plate, trailing 2-0 to the Kelly's Pub. It'll be Brett Cassavent, the second baseman, leading off, followed by Derek Arseny, the catcher. Devin McCullough is the designated player. Devin had a home run earlier this afternoon for the Angels. Trevor Ethier pitching, of course. Casey Brooks in left field, and Brett Casey is at first base. Jesse Osika playing third base. Brian Evanashko out in right field, and then Raylan Robertson, who just made that great grab, bats in the 9 spot. Cole Reed is playing shortstop and is the defensive substitution for the Saskatoon Angels. Set the defense for the Kelly's Pub squad. Eddie Heffernan, Matthew Waugh, and Andrew Wade left to right across your outfield. Mark Lewis, Jeff Evely, Daniel Dalton, and Brian Clark around the horn, and Colin Walsh will be on the board pitching to Ryan Kirk.
Patty Phillips, report to the scorer's booth, please.
Colin Walsh, a lefty on the mound for Kelly's Pub. Colin is generally hot or cold. There's not often an in-between with him. Unlike a lot of pitchers, if he can get through the first inning or two, he tends to settle in and do a real nice job for his team.
Walsh rocks, leans, fires. Big rise ball and a big cut by Brett Cassavent, leading things off for the Saskatoon Angels. Mike Semchuk is our home plate umpire for tonight's Blue Crew. Bruce Beard is over at third base, and Peter Klaczynski is out at first base. Andrew Gallant is the off-field official for this one.
Now, first time I've been in an event with the off-field umpire, and it's just there to make changes, facilitate a little more easily.
Yeah, we saw this at the WBSC event in Saskatoon last year. All the changes do go through the off-field official, and it just makes things a little bit easier for the home plate umpire, who can concentrate on balls and strikes, because those can be hard enough at times.
That's what I was going to say. It's hard enough for those guys in there. And you know what?
They do a great job.
We give them a hard time sometimes, but by and large, they do a great job, and you don't see us volunteering to get in there.
Brett Cassavent looks at that one down and away from Colin Walsh. 2 balls, 2 strikes. Colin, what now? Kind of coming up in the late 20s, I think, and I think still perfecting his craft, but doing a great job out there in the mound, and an emerging ace, I think.
Yeah, I think so. Strikeout there. Colin is mid-20s, maybe 25. So these guys, and this is when I start to feel old, but these guys grow up so fast. I coached against Colin in midget hockey, and then I played ball with him, and now here he is starring on the world stage, but also a fantastic defenseman in his own day. But Colin, mid-20s, and you're right, he's still learning, and he's still learning to be an ace at the senior level. He works in tandem with Jason Hill here locally. He's learning a lot from Jason.
Inside, high drop from Colin to Derek Arseny, and Derek is a guy that's on the Team Canada 40-man roster, and we'll get a look. A very good stick, batting here in the top of the order for the Angels, and this one is laced but caught by the shortstop Jeff Evely, and they're flashing the leather, the veteran, down on one knee.
Well, that's 2 quick outs for Saskatoon, and they have a drastically different order here right now. Cole Reed, who led off the game earlier today, is not batting, and everyone's kind of bumped up a little bit. Arseny went from 5th to 2nd, so definitely a different looking batting order right now.
Devin McCullough steps in the 3 spot, and if you're not used to seeing pitchers hit, as we talked about off the top, get used to it here in this game, and particularly I think this week we're going to see that more and more from some of these teams. McCullough hit one out to center field earlier this afternoon.
Oh, big 3-run bomb for Devin McCullough. Yeah, it was a feat here in the mid-afternoon game.
Well, and that kind of opened up the floodgates for the Angels. That game was tight pretty much up until that point, and they pulled away from the Kitchener-Hallman Cubs, going on to breeze to a 9-0 win, 5-inning run rule game.
Yeah, it was a tough break for Scott Wagner in that game because there was 2 errors to lead off the second inning, and then Saskatoon put up 4, and that was it.
Yeah, just kind of killed
turning
them
back. But you know what? Talk about teams from Saskatoon and pitchers batting. We're going to see one of the best hitting pitchers ever here on Diamond One tomorrow, and whether he's pitching and hitting, we don't know. But Dean Holine's playing here this week, and it is awesome to see. He's one of the first people we saw in the field or in the park this morning when we came in. He was coming from the canteen, but whatever. And
he was here bright and early.
He was getting a feed of that Kelly's Pub food.
In and off the glove of Ryan Kirk. I don't know whether he got crossed up, but he and Colin Walsh are going to have a bit of a long look to say, you got to pitch the pitches that I call.
Yeah, and there's nobody on base, so while they were kind of doing the telepathy thing, Brian Clark went over and picked up the ball like a good first baseman, tossed it back. He wants no part of that conversation either.
No, you don't want to be in on that one. And perhaps lucky for Colin Walsh that Ryan Kirk didn't get it, because he might have thrown it back at 75 miles an hour, much like Ryan Boland does.
The entire Kelly's Pub infield were walking into the dugout on that pitch, but called a ball, full count.
Full count, 3-2 to Devin McCullough. Upstairs, ball 4. Devin McCullough works a 2-out walk.
And on top of the 3-run home run earlier today, Devin McCullough pitched a gem. And I had a question come in on Twitter say, is McCullough better with 2 feet on the mound than he is with 1? Well, first of all, he had a great week in Quad Cities with the A1 Bombers, but he has been very, very good with 2 feet on the rubber.
Yeah, it's an interesting question because it does slightly impact the way the guys throw with the motion, and the 2 feet does make you use the legs a little bit more, and perhaps that is to Devin McCullough's strength. I know a lot of the guys that are in the Canada pool are trying to stay as close as possible to the 2 feet. I know Sean Cleary didn't have an issue with stepping back last week, but at the same time, he doesn't have an issue with staying with 2 feet on here. Justin Schofield throwing with 2 feet on all summer. So that's the request of the Team Canada brass, is to, where you can and are able, we would like you to throw with 2 feet on to stay legal. You see Colin Walsh obviously very close here. Here's a high hopper on the infield. Walsh has got a turn, spin, throw, and makes it look easy to get his counterpart Trevor Ethier 1-3 in your scorebook at home. They strand the walk at first base through 1 complete. It is the Kelly's Pub Molson Bulldogs 2, Saskatoon Angels no score. So Stephen Jesso, the designated player, Mark Lewis and Eddie Hefferon, 7-8-9 for Kelly's Pub. The scheduled batters here in the top of the second inning. They're out in front 2-0 as the top of the shop set the table and were driven in by the 3-4 guys. Pretty much how you script an inning.
Well, that's what you want, especially in the top of the first inning. Stephen Jesso steps in, and I won't give away Jesso's age, but let's just say that he would qualify to play in the Masters event with a lot of his peers this weekend, but here he is DPing for Newfoundland Labrador 1, who are definitely medal contenders.
This is the great thing about the designated player rule. It keeps guys who are a little bit more advanced in age, shall we say, but can still hit the ball with anybody, but perhaps the legs aren't quite there. Here's a one hard hopper into the glove of Trevor Ethier, and he makes short work of Stephen Jesso. You had a Trevor Ethier story you wanted to tell.
I had a great Trevor Ethier story, and I think I told it to him one night in the bear tent, so he probably doesn't remember, but this complex here, the Caribou Memorial Complex, was built in 1994 for the then ISF World Women's Championship, and in 1995 it hosted the senior men's. This is the third time this event has been here, 95, 07, and 2016. But in 1996, this field hosted the junior men's Canadian Nationals, and Trevor Ethier was here with the Saskatoon Harmon Diamondbacks, and their bat boy was a one Chris Abbott, in 14 years old.
Well, there you go. So you've got that connection with the Saskatoon boys, and how did they do?
I think I say we, right? You know.
Well, you had a big part of it. You were picking up the bats.
I want to say we lost out. I want to say Sunday morning to Newfoundland Labrador team that Daryl Tilley was pitching for.
Daryl Tilley, of course, who went on to have a pretty good career on the tournament circuit. Mark Lewis down on strikes.
So Daryl Tilley was pitching, and the legend that week was he was getting his arm frozen with injections every day because he threw something stupid like 70, 80 innings in the week for a team that was Newfoundland Labrador 2. Okay, so the host team had all the money, all the top guys, and Newfoundland Labrador 2 had Daryl Tilley and a scrappy bunch, and they finished better than the host team. And they eliminated the Saskatoon Diamondbacks. But my lasting memory from that tournament, one, there's two. Trevor Ethier, something happened to him. He was playing with a full face mask on, like one of the girls do on the infield, right? He had a broken jaw or something, and I remember he came in late for the tournament. And the other thing being that the guys from Saskatoon on the last day, or a couple times during the week, just took me into the food tent, bought me a big...
Here's a little punch out to short center. That's going to drop in for a base hit. Hefferon on his horse. He's going to slide into second with a Charlie Hustle double. Never a thought about slowing down going around first base. And good wheels by Eddie Hefferon.
Great wheels by Eddie Hefferon, one of the fastest players in the St. John's League. And just to finish my story, because I thought it was pretty great, and obviously 20 years ago, actually it is 20 years ago, I remember it. The guys took me in, bought me a big slab of pizza and a Pepsi, and just kind of hung out. They didn't have to do that. I was just a kid. So yeah, it was something I remember. And
those are the kinds of lasting memories that really come from the game of fastball, fast pitch, softball, and it's great to see. I love when you get the local kids involved as the bat boys and the bat girls and things like that. And I noticed that it's going on here again this week.
Yes, they are doing it here this week. Something they do a great job of. A lot of the minor players, and also behind our broadcast location, probably a 90-degree, or actually I'm bad at this, 180 degrees from your camera angle, there's an indoor soccer field, and they're actually using that for the teams to give minor ball players clinics all week in their off time. So hats off to the organizers for doing that, because that takes a bit of work and also takes commitment from the players. So congratulations to all.
Colin Walsh, who was aboard on a single and came around to score back in the first inning, making his second plate appearance. And this Kelly's Pub team, perhaps not as hard-hitting as the Galway Hitmen, but certainly some pop in the sticks here with the Kelly's Pub Molson Bulldogs.
Yeah, they're going to have to scrap for it a little bit more. They've got a lot of singles guys, but a lot of good runners, and there's guys with pop. Like just looking down the lineup, we know what Matthew Waugh can do. Brian Clark, we saw, hit one 262 feet. Mark Lewis has hit some tape measure shots in his day. Mark.
Yep, Mark Lewis playing on the Kingston Axemen when the
what a game
out of
that
Ontario.
Was. What a game.
Yeah, and he is still coming up and playing on the tournament circuit with one of the good mid-level teams, and they beat a couple of higher-ranked teams. This one out over the head of second baseman Brett Cassavent, and in to score easily is the speedy Eddie Hefferon, and sliding into second base goes Colin Walsh. So a single and a double and an RBI for Colin Walsh, having himself a good night at the plate.
Some excellent base running here from Kelly's Pub to start this game. We've seen them take at least 3 extra bases now. I count Hefferon, Walsh, and Dalton all taking second on what they could have settled for singles. So some real good base running going on out there for Kelly's Pub.
But these are the kind of small things that add up to winning ball games. And 3-0 now for Kelly's Pub, and that brings to the plate Daniel Dalton. He singled and scored in the first as well. The top of the shop getting it done for Kelly's Pub, but also give some credit there to Eddie Hefferon in the 9 spot, hustling up for that double.
Well, yeah, they don't score that run on the Walsh single if Hefferon doesn't stretch it into a double. If he stays at first, now we've got first and third, and all this is happening with 2 out.
Chopper foul at the plate.
A good crowd at the park tonight, Blair. I know it's your first Nationals in St. John's, and 5,000 were in attendance for the championship in 07.
Here's a 2-hopper out to the second baseman. Cassavent from his knees makes the play to get Dalton at first base, his counterpart. But Kelly's Pub push across another. They extend the lead to 3-0. We'll head to the home half of the second inning coming up. The left fielder, Casey Brooks, steps in, and we watched it bat by Casey earlier this afternoon against the Kitchener-Hallman Cubs, where he fouled off several pitches, finally got one he liked, and hit it on a line. Absolute rope that hit the perimeter fence, the 300-foot fence, in the air. And there was just an absolute no doubt about that bomb. Right from the crack of the bat, you just knew that that was gone. I don't even think the left fielder for the Cubs moved.
He took Scott Wagger deep, and he hit the ball hard in another at-bat, and he just took a hefty swing at that first pitch.
Well, Chase is upstairs there. A bit of an awkward-looking swing as we big up Mr. Brooks, and we put the broadcast curse on Casey. We will extend our apologies now, Casey, but if you do hit one, we called it. Upstairs, and I think he went around on that. For sure he did. Peter Klaczynski rings him up for first base. And a strikeout to lead things off here in the home half of the second inning.
It sounds cliche or really simple, but the first out is so important in any inning, and you hear about it all the time. But for Colin Walsh to strike out the first batter, it sets you back when you're on the bench as a hitter, and it also gets you fired up on the mound.
Just missing on the outside corner. Right now, Colin Walsh getting it done on both sides of the ledger, offensively and out in the circle. In tight is the right fielder for Kelly's Pub. Andrew Wade, as this ball is fouled off into the screen, he's probably about 10, 12 feet in from where I would expect him to be playing.
Yeah, in from the patch that's worn in the regular quote-unquote area for the fielders. And Andrew Wade's a good outfielder, so I don't know if he knows something that we don't hear about Brett Casey.
Chasing upstairs goes Casey for strike 2. 1 ball, 2 strikes. We're getting a little confused on the scoreboard out there. They've put up 2 out instead of 2 strikes.
Yeah, I got caught with that last game, so trust your instincts.
Swing and a miss. Down goes Brett Casey. Third one of the night for young Colin Walsh. He's still young enough to call.
Oh, absolutely, yeah, absolutely.
Jesse Osika.
He still gets ID'd at the liquor store.
That's the line, is it? Whether or not you're getting ID'd. Jesse Osika will step in, the third baseman for the Saskatoon Angels. And this one upstairs to the screen, bypasses everybody right to the fence.
Mark Lewis, like a good third baseman, pops in to pick up that ball.
He'll pick that one up.
Oh, we've got some guests here in the booth.
We've got some umpires here. Gary Skirvin and Mitch Zook, our supervising umpires, have decided to make an appearance here. I think we're being supervised now.
Are we getting evaluated? Is that what's going on?
You guys make calls too, right?
Foul down the right side, and deftly dancing out of the way is Peter Klaczynski. Peter has worked some big ball tournaments over his career, most notably the Pan Am Games last year in Toronto.
What a tournament that was. Holy smokes. What a couple of weeks for Team Canada and Softball Canada. I mean, wow. Can it get better?
And we saw Softball Canada, the national team members who are here were honored during opening ceremonies. There is a picture of that up on Facebook and making the rounds on social media with Twitter as well.
No, and a real nice job actually here during the opening ceremonies, because at the beginning they called out the Newfoundland players and we kind of said to each other and said, yeah, but there's other guys here. And before we had the words out of our mouths, they recognized the others as well during the opening pitch. So it was a real great job.
I thought I counted 10 members of that team that are here with various squads.
Well, I'm told there's 28 players from the national team pool here this weekend, and 9 of 10 teams have players on the pool.
Down on strikes, Colin Walsh strikes out the side, and right now it's all Kelly's Pub. They lead 3-0. We'll go to the top of the third. Coming up, the Kelly's Pub Bulldogs. Stay with us here on Ballpark Broadcasting. Matthew Waugh to lead things off for Kelly's Pub here. Top of the third inning. His team out in front, 3-0 over the Saskatoon Angels. Matthew, a line drive sac fly to center field, his last at bat.
We talked about that Team Canada nod earlier in last inning, and Matthew Waugh, of course, a big part of that team. And how hard was it to crack the outfield on that squad? Oh, my goodness.
Here's a chopper, diving play by Dalton. The backhand flip to first, and they get Matthew Waugh, who runs just about as well as anybody. And that's some good defense from Daniel Dalton. Continues to impress. Sorry, I take that back. Brett Cassavan.
Center fielder, number 33, Ryan Kirk.
Yeah, you don't.
Well, Brett, you look good on that play,
You
too.
don't want to give Daniel Dalton. I know why you think it's Daniel Dalton, because these guys got the black uniforms
and they look exactly like him a week ago.
with the black outline numbers. Thank you so much to the Angels again. They're not as bad as the circle tap ones were for the broadcasters, but the same style, and that's exactly why you thought that was Daniel Dalton out there.
So up at the plate now, Ryan Kirk, as my partner bails me out. This one is well hit out to left, but tracking that down is Casey Brooks, and that was almost to the track.
Well, this is exactly what Trevor Ethier needs here in the third inning, to come out and settle down, have a good one. He had given up runs in the first and the second, and now he's Brian Clark away, who hit one 262 feet, mind you, last time, from getting out of this inning.
Clark settles in at the back of that left side batting box and looks at about a 45.5 footer from Trevor Ethier to open for ball one.
Brian Clark does it old school with no batting gloves. He's a real old school player, and as a matter of fact, I don't know if our fans can see it out in left field. The Country Ribbon factory, that's a chicken factory, killing, packaging. I guess killing is not the right word, but that's what they do. And and I mean,
you're going somewhere with this, right?
That's how they get their chicken breast. Anyway, Brian works over there.
So not far from the workplace, as this one is skied out on the right side, and that is Cassavant, I think, pulling that one in as well. So a couple of good plays by Brett Cassavant, the second baseman for Saskatoon Angels. A 3-up, 3-down inning, and just as the doctor ordered for Trevor Ethier and the Angels, and his team will come into the plate here in the bottom of the third inning, chasing 3 and trying to get back into this one. Stay with us. Ballpark Broadcasting, Sports Canada TV. Brian Evanoshko to lead things off for the Saskatoon Angels fouls this one straight back to the screen, and we want to thank the two supervising umpires for stopping by, Mitch Zook and Gary Skirvin. Always good to talk to the Blue crew.
No, it's good to keep them on your side too, you know what I mean? But with all jokes aside, those guys, I believe, pay their own way here to these tournaments at the Canadian Nationals and give up their time from their day jobs, much like a lot of the players, frankly, but you couldn't have a game without them. So thanks very much to the guys in blue, and I don't know, and I might be cursing them, but I don't think we've had
nothing too controversial so far, that's for sure.
That's the word. I blanked out.
Yeah, 1 ball, 2 strikes, despite what the scoreboard says, to Brian Evanoshko, leading things off here in the home half of the third. Swing and a miss. Down goes Evanoshko. That's 4 straight now for Colin Walsh and 5 on the evening for the young lefty. And he seems to be dialed in right now.
Well, much like Sean Clary in the last game, I don't know if it's a trait of Newfoundland pitchers or pitchers in general, but you get a chance to settle in, and he's made it into the third inning. So smooth sailing right now. Like you said, 4 in a row for Colin, retired 5 straight.
Raylan Robertson, the 9 batter, and there's a changeup from Walsh. Haven't seen that yet. Pulls it out of his pocket here at the bottom of the third inning, and a good one. Dips at the plate, and Robertson way out on the front foot. Nothing you can do with that one.
No, absolutely. Actually, you're happy you don't hit it on the first pitch.
And waves at the high rise ball. So down low and slow, and then up and in with the heat. And mixing and matching out there right now. Colin Walsh has got it all going on.
This Saskatoon lineup is not bad for Colin at all. A lot of lefties, and he's certainly taken advantage of that.
Bit of a feeble swing by Robertson as he goes down on strikes now 5 in a row, 6 on the game for Colin Walsh, and we're back to the top of the shop for Brent Cassavant.
That's 6 of 8 as well. If you're watching at home, there's been 8 outs, 6 of them via the K. And 1 was a ground ball back to Colin Walsh.
So he had that line drive by Derek Arseny that was caught by Jeff Evely. He's been the only other guy that's been allowed to play out there. Walsh determined to do it all himself right now.
And you know what? I'm sure the fielders are fine with that. The infielders get to throw it around on the strikeouts. The outfielders, they're just hoping to get back into the warm in the dugout.
Called a strike, and he's not even really throwing for the waste pitch right now. He's got it in a groove, and you know you're in that groove when you just want to get out there and throw strikes with every pitch. There's no nibbling. He's just going right after them, and this one down and in for a ball, 1-2 on Cassavant.
Yeah, Colin threw that one at the ankles, but you're right, but at the same time, a young pitcher can get in trouble that way. You saw the veteran Sean Cleary, a lot of deep counts and really keeping guys guessing. If you go at guys with 2 strikes, you can get yourself in trouble.
You will pay the price at some point because somebody's going to catch up with something. You're right. You can't get too much of the plate with 2 strikes. But right there, strikes out the side for the second straight inning. And Colin Walsh, it's all in his favor right now. It's all in favor of Kelly's Pub. They're up 3-0 and coming to the plate as we head into the top of the 4th inning here on Ballpark Broadcasting. Jeff Evely to lead things off for the Kelly's Pub Molson Bulldogs here, top of the 4th inning. Got a good one here between the Kelly's Pub and the Saskatoon Angels.
Jeff went down looking to end the first.
Skies this one out to left. Coming in on the run is Brooks, and he'll make the one-handed grab. Those can occasionally be ill-advised, but gets away with it there.
That has been the Bermuda Triangle out there tonight between left, center, and short. We had 3 balls fall in there in our last game, 2 from Shane Boland.
Yeah, Shane Boland was kind of using that as his personal parking spot.
And another tough one, but that, I think, speaks to the 265 fence.
Hard one hopper right into the glove off the bat of Steven Gesso as Brett Casey picks that one off. That seemed like it might be destined for the corner, but able to snare that hot shot. And very quickly, 2 pitches, 2 outs. And you groove the next one here, you can tie the record.
That's 6 in a row for Trevor Ethier. So after giving up runs, 2 in the first, 1 in the second, we call it settled in. That was a rocket shot from Gesso, but the D did the job. Casey at first.
Mark Lewis struck out back in the second inning, but you've got to be careful with Mark. He's not your prototypical number 8 batter.
No, Mark Lewis doesn't bat 8. I don't know on any team he's ever batted 8. But it speaks to the lineup here that Kelly's Pub have, and Huey Clark is the kind of manager that'll sneak Mark in the 8 spot. Hope somebody forgets that he can hit bombs.
Well, he's in a hole very quickly, 0-2, and Trevor Ethier indeed settling in as pouring in strike after strike right here, right now. Bounces this one in, a little short drop ball, not chasing Mark Lewis. 1 ball, 2 strikes to the veteran.
Well, Blair, the City of St. John's workers were here doing a ton of work on the fields today, and one of those guys was Mark's father-in-law, Kenny Chafe, his wife Danielle's father, and Kenny didn't help him with that one, though, as Mark goes down swinging.
So Mark Lewis down on strikes again for the second time tonight. Trevor Ethier, 3 up, 3 down again for the second straight inning. And it's settling in to be a good old-fashioned pitcher's duel. We'll see how Colin Walsh responds when we come back for the home half of the fourth here on Ballpark Broadcasting, Sports Canada TV. Stay with us. Two, 3-4 for the Saskatoon Angels here in the home half of the fourth inning. Derek Arseny, Devin McCullough, and Trevor Ethier. They're chasing 3 runs. Got to get somebody aboard against Colin Walsh right now. They've only had the lone base runner, and that was the walk by McCullough back in the first, and that was quickly erased on a tapper back to the mound. And he has struck out the last 6 straight.
Well, it's 2-3-4 for the Angels, and if they're going to do something, you'd think it needs to be here.
Big cut upstairs. Chasing out of the zone goes Derek Arseny. Derek had that line shot right back at Jeff Evely. He's the only other guy that's been in the ball game. It's pretty much been the Colin Walsh show right now for the Kelly's Pub Molson Bulldogs, as this one is laced right back up the middle. So Arseny gets aboard for the 3 and 4 batters, and this could be what the doctor ordered for the Saskatoon Angels.
Absolutely. The Polyplus Angels now have something going with their number 3 hitter, and Trevor Ethier. You can never sleep on that guy on deck. So if you're an Angels fan, you got to be real happy with this in the 11-degree St. John's night. So you folks watching in Saskatoon, you're probably warm and cozy and maybe even have the AC on. No need for that here this week.
Well, a lot of guys still out here in short sleeves. I noticed you still got the just the polo on here in the booth.
Well, it's not so bad here in the booth, that's for sure.
Upstairs from Walsh, ball 1 to Devin McCullough. It was 33 degrees when I left Ontario yesterday afternoon.
We've been very fortunate with our broadcast locations over the last couple of weeks.
Upstairs again. So Colin Walsh hasn't been falling behind many batters, but goes 2-0 here to Devin McCullough. And we'll see if Walsh comes in right across the plate or able to nibble on a corner. Well, it's all over the plate. This could be a double play. 4-6, back to 3, and a good dig over there by the first baseman, Brian Clark, to complete that double play.
Great job by all parties involved. Jeff Evely with the great turn, but it all starts with Daniel Dalton sucking up that ground ball. And I think back to the Circle Tap versus Hill United game a couple of weeks ago where Dalton muffed a double play ball, and he's put that behind him. That was an excellent job.
Trevor Ethier now up with the bases empty. And this one is pulled foul down the left side, just out of the reach of the third baseman, Mark Lewis. And those can just be so disheartening for the team at the plate when a team pulls the double out of the hat like that. You know, instead of your cleanup batter coming up with at least one guy in scoring position or a guy on base, now up with the bases empty, and the best you can do is a solo shot here.
Yeah, it looked like they had something going there, and all of a sudden it's erased, and now Trevor Ethier's in a hole.
0-2, and Mr. Momentum, who might have been on the side of the Angels with a couple of those quick innings that Ethier had, looks like he might be jumping back onto the Kelly's Pub side of the ledger here. As 1-2 now.
Yeah, Mo was a fickle man. He started the game with his white shirt. He thought about putting on the black one, but I don't know.
Well, swing and a miss, and strike 3. Colin Walsh adds to his total. 8 on the evening, and Saskatoon Angels look like it might be a promising inning, but a fine 4-6-3 double play, and we're going to go to the top of the 5th inning, the slide to 5. 3-0 Kelly's Pub.
Fantasy.
Eddie Hefferon for Kelly's Pub will lead things off here. Top of the 5th inning as our slide to 5 gets underway. This one is drilled out to right field, backpedaling, and off his glove, dropping it is the right fielder, Brian Evanoshko. Hefferon will speed around third, will make the turn as the ball comes into the infield, and kind of got tangled up out there in right field. Brian Evanoshko, maybe getting onto the track kind of threw him off, Chris, but I thought he had a beat on it, and it kind of clunked off the heel of the glove.
Tough break. It's a long way back there, I'm telling you, to that 265-foot fence. And Eddie Hefferon now has a double and a triple, and there was some rumblings about Hefferon being left off the DC team, the defending champ Hitman roster, and playing here with NL1. But he's going to get more chance to play, more chance to get noticed here, Blair, and he's certainly done that already tonight.
Well, he's definitely got some wheels as he easily pulled into third, and I thought had a notion maybe to turn the corner. Line shot into the glove of the first baseman, Brett Casey. He's had a couple of hard hit balls his way, as that's the first time they've been able to retire Colin Walsh.
Up next, number 4.
Hits the ball hard again. That'll bring up Daniel Dalton with one down and that runner at third.
Well, if Ethier can find a way to strand the runner at third, it should get momentum back in the black uniform. But Dalton and then Matty Waugh, that could be a
bit of a tough order,
task.
and the infield has drawn in for the Angels. Can't afford to go down 4-0. So you see there on your screen at home, both of those middle infielders, Cole Reed and Brett Cassavant, the shortstop and second baseman respectively, are inside the baselines.
Yeah, and you really got to be quick because Eddie Hefferon would be up there. If they had a stolen base or a run throw hit competition, he might win the run. So,
well, anything that's not directly at you, he's probably going to score. This one is just foul down the left side. Takes a bit of grief from some of the fans in behind the plate who wanted that to be a fair ball.
Yeah, there's no way. If that's a fair ball, Eddie Hefferon's out because it hits him. And actually, he was close to being on the inside part of the line. The number one rule of running third base is do not come to that side of the baseline.
So this one is lifted up on the infield, right into the glove of the second baseman, Cassavant. So Ethier is 2/3 of the way to working out of this jam here in the top of the 5th inning. But he's got Matthew Waugh to contend with next. Matthew, a line drive sac fly, and then a ground out to the second baseman, Cassavant. But it took a play to get him the last time.
I can guarantee you that this conversation is saying don't throw anything over the plate, and you might get the intentional walk here and try your luck with Ryan Kirk.
Well, Ryan has hit the ball hard twice as well. An RBI single and then a fly out to fairly deep left field.
Well, Blair, most teams, the concept is don't let their best player beat you. And if you pitch to Matthew Waugh right now, you have the potential to let their best player beat you.
Coming to bat right now.
inside from Trevor Ethier. And I'm sure Trevor's well aware of that as well, that as good a player as Ryan Kirk is developing into, he's not on the national team. He's not the leadoff batter for Team Canada, the world champions. And to your point, I don't think Matthew Waugh is going to see anything near the plate here.
No, and the first two pitches would certainly dictate that. Trevor and his catcher, Derek Arsney, both veterans, and they're hoping that Matthew Waugh might chase something and get himself out.
Up and in to Matthew for ball 3. I think the chances of Matthew Waugh chasing something out of the zone in this spot are about as good as it being 30 degrees here tomorrow in St. John's.
That's a good one. Well, he throws him a strike.
3-0, he gets a strike, but that might be the only one.
Well, I was thinking 3-0, you might see Arsney stand up and just give the intentional pass, but...
Well, and 3-2 now as Matthew Waugh looks at 2 straight down George Street to run the count to full. And we'll see if Trevor Ethier is willing to go to the well one more time. You know Matthew Waugh is going to be all over anything close. And this one is just fisted out into the left. That's going to fall in. And they did indeed let one of the better players beat them. I think maybe they got a little too confident there with the 3-2 count. But Matthew Waugh, the jam shot, and he's able to flare that out into the left field for an RBI single. And I think discretion might have been the better part of valor there for Trevor Ethier.
It's going to be an RBI single, and he'll move the second on an error. And they got themselves back in the count and forgot about the plan, I think, and gave Waugh something he could hit. And when it was 3-0, maybe it would have been best for Derek Arsney to stand up and put his left arm straight.
And it wasn't a bad pitch from Ethier. I mean, he jammed Matthew Waugh, but Matthew is such a good hitter. He's able to bring the hands in and just flare that out to left field. And now you see a bit of the body language there, particularly on the left side of the infield. You've kind of got the heads looking down, and that might have been a bit of a backbreaker for the Saskatoon Angels, now down 4-0 to the Kelly's Pub Molson Bulldogs.
Well, Colin Walsh has faced the minimum since the first inning, and in fact only faced 4 batters then. So they've only got 9 outs left.
Here's a chopper on the infield. The one hopper is thrown at first baseman Brett Casey. Can't dig it out as Cassavant had to come way in almost to the circle to pick up that high hopper off the bat of Ryan Kirk. And that's an infield hit in my book. I don't think they were going to get Kirk at first base. Matthew Waugh goes coast to coast to get to third, second to third at least anyway. And we'll have Daniel Dalton come back in to run for Ryan Kirk, and that's a pretty good trade too.
You took the words out of my mouth. A great trade. Kirk, and to quote Blair Setford, runs pretty good for a catcher, but Daniel Dalton runs pretty good, period.
Off and running first pitch. Here's a chopper to Ethier. The easy flip to first base. So Brian Clark, first pitch swinging, goes down 1-3. Might have wanted to see a couple more and let that develop a little bit better. But nonetheless, Kelly's Pub score another. They now lead 4-0. And we'll continue the slide to 5. We'll head to the home half. Angels coming to the plate. So as Colin Walsh and Ryan Kirk try to get on the same page with the warm-up tosses, we'll give you a bit of a rundown on some of the games here earlier today. Most recently, in a bit of a barn burner, actually, Saskatoon, the Chetty's Pretty Boys, 2-1 winners over the Bigs from Newfoundland and Labrador here from the St. John's League, Newfoundland 2. As Chetty boys win that one 2-1.
Chetty's sitting in a first place tie right now.
They're 2-0 on the day as they also upset Nova Scotia 3-2. So a couple of close games, and Chetty boys have been involved in both of them here on day one. There's been a couple of blowouts as well. The Galway Hitmen look like they are well in tune for this drive for 5. 13-0 and 14-0. Two gigantic wins. They've only played 10 innings, but they've put up 27 big runs.
That, in fairness, they haven't played any of the other contenders yet. The next couple of days will tell the story about how far ahead they really are.
Well, I had thought that maybe they would get a better game from the Alvinston First Ontario Indians, the Ontario 2 team. And Michael Legas-Root, I thought, kept them down, in the first inning, but kind of didn't get helped by his defense there as down on strikes, leading things off here in the home half of the 5th inning for the Saskatoon Angels. Casey Brooks.
Number 19, Brett.
Announcer's curse.
Yeah, we bigged him up, and now he's got a pair of strikeouts there, one looking and one swinging. That'll bring us to Brett Casey, and it's the bottom of the order where Colin Walsh has just rung up the K's here at 1.6 straight.
And Colin Walsh has now retired 8 in a row. No, way more than that. No, he gave up
He had the one-out base hit, or sorry, the lead-off base hit.
I missed that.
By Derek Arce, but that was erased on the double. That's right. So just some other scores over the course of the day. Saskatoon won, which is the Bullier Rustlers. They rebounded from an early morning defeat here to Kelly's Pub. They lost 10-2 earlier today, but then they came back and won 7-0 over the Bigs. So the Bigs 0-2 on the day.
Yeah, the Bigs, the NL2 representative, really the third Newfoundland team, but they'll be scrapping it out to get a low playoff seed.
The Saskatoon Angels team earlier in the day took out the Kitchener-Hallman Cubs 9-0 as that ball
nearly took out a Kitchener-Hallman Cub.
Over
actually, that hit somebody.
That did get somebody, I think.
Plate right now is Adam here, number 23, the second baseman.
She's still on her feet.
But that was headed towards Diamond 2, but it definitely hit somebody, and she's getting some attention right now from the medical people here at the park, and there are a number of paramedics and others who are here available.
Yeah, no, she's laughing. I thought she was crying. She's laughing. Must have just grazed her or just missed her.
This one is driven out to right, coming across, diving, and making the catch is the right fielder, Andrew Wade, tracking that one down.
Andy Wade, last time Brett Casey was up, we said Andrew Wade was playing in a little bit too far in right field. Well, he just made a liar out of both of us because he knew exactly where that ball was going. A great diving play on the foul line.
So that'll bring up Jesse Osika. And getting some defense when it counts the most.
Well, that's it. The double play, that diving stab. I mean, Walsh has been good, but he got two great plays behind him.
And also that line drive all the way back in the first inning, too. That was hit right at Jeff Easley. A swinging foul ball at the plate, Jesse Osika.
Osika struck out to end the second inning, and Colin Walsh has faced the minimum since the end of the first. So hats off to young Mr. Walsh, as we're calling him this week. Still gets ID'd.
First Ontario Indians were 7-6 winners in extra innings as they took out the Bridge City Sharks, the Saskatoon 4 team, 7-6. The Sharks had been victimized by the Galway Hitmen earlier in the day in that 13-0 win, but they put up a good fight against the First Ontario team. This one is flared down the left side, and Lewis has got a shot at it and just about made the over-the-shoulder basket catch heading into the end zone.
Yeah, that was just off our screen there, but Mark Lewis can make that catch. I've seen him make it 100 times. Actually played with Mark for a few years with Three Chairs Pub. but that one just out of his reach. But yeah, you talked about that game between Saskatchewan 4 and
Ontario 2.
And then Ontario 2 had to turn around, opening ceremonies play again, so they were really in a tough spot going into that game.
Yeah, 10 innings against Bridge City, right on to Diamond 1 for the opening ceremonies, which went on for a spell.
Wouldn't say they were short, no.
You're right. We only missed a couple people in the crowd who didn't get a chance at the mic. Change up floated in for strike 3. Colin Walsh picks up a 2-strikeout inning. Both of them looking, coupled around a fine defensive play by Andrew Wade. Another 3-up, 3-down inning for Walsh. Early getting late for the Saskatoon Angels, down to their final 6 outs. Got to shut the door and then come back to the sticks. Stay with us here. We'll go to 6. Kelly's Pub up 4-0. Jeff Evely, Stephen Jesso, and Mark Lewis, the scheduled batters for Kelly's Pub as we go to the top of the 6th inning. Kelly's be looking to add to this 4-0 lead. Evely has got the hands about 2 inches choked up on the bat. And looks at 2 balls down in the zone. Working to get you an update on the Kitchener-Hallman Cubs East Hants Mastodons score over on Diamond 2, and if there is a mouthful in the game, it is East Hants Mastodons. I'd like to thank whoever came up with that one.
Yeah, that's a tough handle. It's 6-4 for the East Hants Mastodons in the bottom half of the 4th inning. Justin Schofield has taken over on the mound because this one is also high scoring, and East Hants cannot afford to go down 0-2 here today.
No, they dropped a game that I don't think that they were figuring was going to be in the loss column. Dustin Cashane spinning a gem this morning in a game that got moved over to Lions Park. Here's a 2-hopper out to the shortstop, Cole Reed. He'll flip to first for the first out of the inning, so 6-3 in your scorebook at home. That'll bring up Stephen Jesso. Stephen had a hard hit ball back in the 4th inning, but that was intercepted by Brett Casey.
Now batting number 3, Stephen Jesso.
And Jesso dribbled one back to the mound, and Trevor Ethier to lead off the 2nd.
Called strike, so 0-1, and Ethier hasn't worked ahead of a lot of the batters here tonight, but since that 1st inning where he gave up 2, he's been able to limit the damage as Jesso chases way upstairs. A solo run in the 2nd and another solo in the 4th, and both of those credited to Eddie Heffernan and his base running adroitness, as you can't defense speed, the one thing you can't really do anything about.
No, and Eddie Heffernan is another player from the hotbed of Placentia, home of Stephen Mullally, Jeremy O'Reilly. I don't know who else in this game. Jeff Evely has roots in Placentia. So it's certainly a hotbed, not a big spot either. But we found out today that Lance Wynn's wife also has roots in Placentia.
I think Lance's father-in-law, I think that's what we heard, hails from the Placentia Bay area. As down on strikes goes Stephen Jesso. Looked like Trevor Ethier took something off of that one. Haven't seen him throw that change-up a lot here tonight, but certainly was effective there against Jesso. And you got to wonder for all the years that maybe those guys would have seen each other over the years. And we got a pinch hitter coming on for Mark Lewis. It is Doug Marshall, number 91, will come on for Mark. Not often Mark Lewis is pinch hit for, but a couple of Ks here, and really hasn't been able to get a good look at Trevor Ethier, so not a bad idea here from the skipper.
Yeah, up 4-0, a good chance. And Doug Marshall's a veteran in the St. John's League. He's been to countless nationals. Doug, another one of these guys that, probably could play on the circuit full-time, but Doug is a full-time dad, and he's also a corrections officer in St. John's. And also Doug used to work rotationally, so, he's a busy guy.
I want to thank our umpire coming up to give us the change, Andrew Gallant, the off-field official here this evening, and letting us know about the change. That is some curbside service there for us.
That is service. First umpire to do that for us today, so thank you very much. Good maritime boy, I guess, I'm told. So
PEI, I believe, the Gallant sporting family.
Yeah, and Gerard, of course, the head coach of the Florida Panthers, but around these parts, he's known as a good ball player.
There are a lot of guys who, especially in the olden days, here's a hard two-hopper right at Cole Reed, and he's able to withstand that. We'll pick that one up as we head into the home half of the sixth inning. A couple of groundouts to the shortstop, sandwiched around a strikeout. Trevor Ethier keeps the door shut for now. Brian Evanashko leading things off for Sask Angels. Early is late for the Angels, down to their final 6 outs.
Well, you know what? This has been an absolute pleasure because the first few games here today with the inflated scores took a long time. This one, we're just over an hour, actually.
Let's not jinx it, is all I'm saying. Every time Joe Todd does one of those, we end up 3 hours later.
One isn't.
So a pinch hit, actually.
For Kelly's spot.
That's foul. Mark Lewis has re-entered for Kelly's Pub.
Okay, and I'm just these broadcaster-friendly uniforms here
So we've
for
got Darren
the
McCullough
Angels.
is in for a pinch hit.
Okay, they've got him marked down as 13, not 1, but we'll go with Darren McCullough pinch hitting. So McCullough for Evan Oshko.
Yes, that is correct. And thank you again to Mr. Gallant.
Just misses outside. So Darren McCullough, I'm going to go with a brother of Devon.
Yeah, we're going to have to get the research done. We dropped the ball on that one, but I'm going to say somewhat related. I believe there's a McCullough on the coaching staff as well.
Inside.
Coming to the plate.
I was talking with Ray Burns, who's on the coaching staff for the Sask Angels squad, and his son Patrick will be coming out a little bit later in the week, but saying that Devon and Ethier were going to have to shoulder the load until Patrick gets here a little bit later in the week, and he'll be able to pick up some pitching time on the mound at that point.
So here's one for you. The girl that got hit in the forehead with the ball earlier is holding an ice pack to her forehead, but she hasn't moved, and that foul ball just missed her as well.
Not by much did it miss her either.
So we're cute out here in Newfoundland, but maybe we're not that smart.
Take cover.
Actually, we were in Charlottetown in 2014, and a young lady was smoked in the jaw by a Steve Langley foul ball, and it actually delayed the game for a long time. It was scary. She was knocked out. Turns out she was a Newfoundlander up visiting the game, and she came back the next day, and of course, because this sport is so awesome, she got a hat signed by all the Three Cheers guys and the Charlottetown guys.
So she got some souvenirs out of it alongside the broken jaw.
Yeah, came up and did an interview with us on the broadcast. So, yeah, she was
a minor celebrity.
Going to school in Charlottetown out to support the boys, and took a ball in the chops.
Raylan Robertson flies out to Andrew Wade. And just like that, there are 2 down in the inning. And back to the top of the shop for Brent Cassavant. Brent, a pair of strikeouts on the evening. And we got another change.
Second baseman, number 12, Brent Cassavant.
He just went out 34 with the last batter. Okay.
So that was actually Ryan Casey who flied out to right field. So Ryan Casey had come on for Robertson. And again, thanks to our intrepid off-field umpire for coming up and giving us the changes. We can't make out the uniform numbers, or can barely make out the uniform numbers on the Angels. Black on black with a red outline, almost as bad as the dark green ones as you talked about earlier.
I'd like to thank our
upstairs from Colin Walsh. And, I've seen Colin Walsh pitch probably 4 or 5 games over the course of this season, at least that many, maybe more, as we saw, of course, a lot of him the July long weekend. There's a multi-hopper picked up by Lewis. Good strong throw over to first base. And another 1-2-3 inning. Defense helping out Colin Walsh, and Kelly's Pub getting the job done here. And Colin Walsh, I think maybe his best game of the season.
Well, so far Colin Walsh has been lights out. He's got 3 outs to go to punch a win for Kelly's Pub.
Eddie Hefferon, who's having himself a whale of a ball game, will lead things off here in the top of the 6th inning, top of the 7th inning, rather.
The 7th, yes.
And as we motor right along here in this one, Eddie has got a double and a triple, 2 runs scored. And you can't defense speed. And here's a high hopper. That's going to get over the head of the second baseman. And he's going to go to second again and slides in, pops up, safe again. 2 doubles and a triple. This kid is on fire.
Eddie Rabbit out there motoring around, like you said. That's
number 11, Colin Walsh.
That's 7 total bases out of the batter spot for him tonight. And Eddie Hefferon, you can't teach speed, and speed kills. So there you have it.
Back to the top of the shop, Colin Walsh, 2 for 3, RBI, run scored, and even the out that he made was a line shot right at Brett Casey over at first.
I'd say Eddie Hefferon was the early leader for MVP, but we already know who that is. Mr. Brad Esgel is what, 6
for 6, 3 home runs, 6 RBIs, and 6 runs scored.
And that is on day 1.
Yeah, as Lance said, anything he does now is a come down. He's got to make an out at some point, doesn't he?
I would think. Maybe instead of 50-50, they just start taking bets on when Brad Esgel's going to get out.
inside to Colin Walsh. And just to complete the story on Colin Walsh, I think, like I said, definitely the best game I've seen him throw this year, but certainly the most complete game. Sometimes he can get locked into throwing rise ball after rise ball, but tonight he's mixed in the change a little bit. It's looked really good, and this one is belted out to the gap in left center. That's going to one-hop the fence. Hefferon is going to score easy. Walsh is going to round second. There'll be a play at third, except it's airmailed into the dugout and just ricochets off the top of the fence. The throw from the shortstop, Cole Reed, sailed over the head of Jesse Osika at third, and they got lucky that didn't clear the fence as well.
Absolutely. It's an RBI triple for Colin Walsh. 3 runs scored for Eddie Hefferon. Second RBI of the night for Colin Walsh, who's doing the Dean Holine impression of pitching and driving in the runs.
Hard one hopper. Ethier will turn and look at Walsh and then almost shot put that one over to Brett Casey at first for an out. So Daniel Dalton down 1-3 in the scorebook, and more importantly keeps Colin Walsh at bay at third. But 5-0 now for the Kelly's Pub Bulldogs, and trying to put this one away and run away with it here in the top of the 7th inning.
5-0 game. I would certainly be running for my pitcher right now. Let him get his breath as he's got 3 outs to get.
Well, and they've got a deep bench to do that, but certainly no sign of anybody coming off the first base side right now. Matthew Waugh, a couple of RBIs. And just a typical Matthew Waugh day. Get the ball in play, go run hard, hit it hard, score some runs, drive some in.
He's fun to watch, eh?
I love watching Matthew Waugh play. I had the pleasure of coaching Matthew Waugh a few years ago on the Toronto Gators, and just an absolute A-plus person and just one of the absolute greatest people in the game right now.
I've heard a lot of good things. I haven't had much interaction with him personally, but maybe get a chance to have a chat this week.
Downstairs, and Colin Walsh will trot home as that took a bad ricochet from a Saskatoon perspective, and that will make it 6-0, and I think just about put paid to this one tonight.
Yeah, no action in the Saskatoon pen, of course. Just a couple outs left to get for Trevor Ethier, and like you talked about, without Pat Burns here, it's a 2-man rotation, literally right now, rotation, just 2 of them. In and out.
Up and in to Matty Waugh. And yeah, you're not going to get Devin McCullough up at this point of the evening.
Tomorrow, be interesting to see. It's not till Friday that this Angels team runs into the defending champs. But tomorrow their first game is against Alveston.
High hopper, and they're not going to get Matthew Waugh there. No opportunity for Brett Casavant as Waugh was crossing the base just as the ball settled into the glove.
So 10:30, the Angels play Alveston tomorrow morning, and that'll be a 7 a.m. start for those of you in Saskatoon.
Oh, I thought you meant here.
No.
Good Lord, man. You're working that one on your own.
And 1:30 in the afternoon, that'll be 10 a.m. in Saskatoon. So 2 quick games again for the Angels. They'll play Team Nova Scotia.
So you'll see just about everybody on the broadcast here over the course of the round robin, and then we get things narrowed down into the playoff round. 8 of the teams will advance to the playoff round. Top 4 get that all-important double life. The bottom 4 will have the single life. Called a strike on Ryan Kirk.
It's double life right through except for the championship game, and that's great news for whoever's trying to dethrone Galway.
Yeah, you only have to beat them once, and you don't necessarily have to beat them in the winner's bracket final. You can still drop down, play the 1 extra game, but as we saw last week, having to play that extra game can be very, very costly.
It can now. The heat won't be a factor here this weekend, I don't believe, like it was in Moline.
Well, yeah,
I'm sure Adam Folkert would have taken this weather, but...
yeah, the heat not a factor, but it's the wear and tear. It's a lot of games, as you talked about, 9 hard hit ball. They'll go the short way and then try to come back to first. Can't get the double play, but they do get the leader in Matthew Waugh.
Interesting there, Cole Reed makes the toss. He was actually closer to the bat. That's what they're talking about out there now. saying, hey, man, just run across the bag.
Yeah, I think he'd have been better advised to try and take that one by himself.
And I think Cole Reed, it comes back to not being familiar with this field, not recognizing how far he is away from second base, only the first day here. I'm sure if he was playing on his home field, that's an easy 6-3 double play.
So Ryan Kirk aboard with the fielder's choice, but Matthew Waugh right back on the bag as he becomes the 2-out catcher replacement runner.
Ooh.
And this one, well hit, center left, trailing across and making the grab just in front of the track. Brian Clark has hit a couple of balls hard to center field tonight, but nothing to show for it.
Now, unfortunately, Brian Clark 0 for 4. You're right. He's hit a couple of balls hard, but tough stat line for Brian tonight.
They add 2 more, and 6-0. Kelly's Pub looking to get the final 3 outs. Last call for the Angels coming up. Two, 3, 4 again for Saskatoon Angels. Derek Arseny, Devin McCullough, and Trevor Ethier. Only one over the minimum tonight for Colin Walsh. He's done a great job of filling up the strike zone and working ahead of the Saskatoon Angels batters all night long. Arseny has hit the ball hard twice. He's 1 for 2.
This reminds me of Colin back in the...
Well, and that one goes off the elbow of Arseny.
Stewart, first base.
Certainly unintentional. But I was in the middle of saying this reminds me of Colin back on Canada Day weekend. He threw a great game against the Hill United Chiefs and actually hit the ball well in that game as well. He was feeling pretty good about himself. Tough luck against Hill United at the World Tournament as they beat up just about everybody at some point.
Just about.
Just about. The Toronto Gators took the win.
Well, yeah, just.
You know what,
exactly.
though? In that winner,
two phenomenal games. Yeah. It could have gone either way, both of them. And Hill United certainly didn't want to release their grip on that particular title.
Well, when you look at it for those guys, they've been on the circuit for 5 years. They've got 2 silvers, 3 wins. So, it's hard to say anything bad about them.
Well, only 3 losses in 5 years in World Tournament play for the Hill United Chiefs. But right now, it's the Saskatoon Angels and the Kelly's Pub Bulldogs, and it's really been the Colin Walsh story this evening with a great assist from Eddie Hefferon.
Yeah, for sure. Great night for Eddie Hefferon. But Colin Walsh, last time Arseny led off with a single. He turned it into a double play, but this time he also walks Devin McCullough. So even though it's a 6-0 lead, something brewing now for the Poly Plus Angels.
Well, and this is where Colin has got to step up and close the door. You can't even give a good team a sniff here at the end. The 3 outs at the end are always the hardest ones to get, but you don't want to let a team know that they can get back into the game against you. And maybe this is where, this is a lesson that Colin Walsh has still got to learn, that when you've got the team down, you've really got to put your foot on them and close that door door. You can't let the team back in. I mean, a 3-run bomb here from Trevor Ethier, it's a whole new ballgame. This is off the glove of Walsh. They get one at second base at least, so some good fortune as Jeff Evely, right guy, right place, is able to pick up the deflection and flip over to his partner Daniel Dalton to get the force at second base, but now runners on the corners with one out.
The old 1-6-4 fielder's choice. Ethier hit that a ton, and a great job to adjust by Jeff Evely at short. Now, like you said, first and third with one away, that's fouled out of here.
And Casey Brooks, who we had been talking about earlier in the game, with a plenty of pop out to left, and he can change the score in a heartbeat here as well. And you didn't really necessarily need to face Casey this inning, but for the 2 walks, here's a hard hit ball right past Mark Lewis, and indeed he changes the score, and the Angels still have got some life here in this one.
So there goes the shutout for Kelly's Pub, and there's some Saskatoon fans on hand as we're hearing some whistles and cheers.
So up to second base on the play went Trevor Ethier. They don't really have anybody left on the bench to run for Trevor.
No, and that's an issue right now. He's looking in there, but they've used their 2 pinch hitters last inning.
So runners at first and second, and now Brett Casey at the plate. He hit that fly ball that Andrew Wade made that great diving catch on out and right as a ball escapes onto the field from the bullpen, as suddenly there's some action in the Kelly's Pub bullpen.
Actually, that ball, I think, came from the other field. It was hit a long ways. And in the bullpen for Kelly's Pub, it must be Kyle Linton.
I think it's Kyle Linton who indeed got up. Kyle, I think, went this morning's game.
He did.
For Kelly's Pub.
A mercy rule win.
Yeah, 10-2 over the Bullier Rustlers. And Kyle was just featured in an article by Bob Otto on Facebook this morning as well. If you haven't seen that one, look it up. Great piece on Kyle Linton.
Well, I tell you, for the Toronto Batmen last week, Kyle Linton threw a lot of innings in the blazing heat and didn't say a word about it. And the Batman and Mark Lewis's Kingston Axemen had one heck of an extra inning game.
Chop foul there at the plate by Brett Casey. Good hack. Both of those teams advancing deep into the week. Batman finishing top 8. Kingston top 12 or top 10, I guess, with ties. So quite the accomplishment for both of those squads, well above what their rankings were. Swing and a miss. Down goes Brett Casey. And all of that action leading into the Canadian Championship here. Kyle Linton looking more and more like a spectator as Colin Walsh seems to have righted the ship here a little bit with that strikeout.
So Osika is the last hope. He's 0 for 2 with a couple of strikeouts.
12 on the night for Colin Walsh. Looking to make it a baker's dozen here to close out the door. This one is lifted foul and just out of the reach of a hard-charging Mark Lewis. Had the head down, thought he might get to that, but it was going to be a question of what he got to first, the ball or the fence.
Well, you know what, Blair, both of us have played over there, and you see those balls and you want to get there, but it's just physically impossible.
No, that's that whole gravity thing. It sucks. Swing and a foul back. So down to their final strike, Saskatoon Angels. They broke the goose egg 6-1 for Kelly's Pub. And trying to extend this one a little bit further, Jesse Osika. But 0-2, and Colin Walsh. A lot of opportunities here to get strike 3. And just downstairs, Osika, good job to lay off that pitch.
Yeah, when you're 0 for 2 with a couple of Ks, it's easy to get caught chasing, but a good job there.
And chop foul at the plate. Staying alive, Jesse Osika.
I love the fact that there's some support here for Saskatchewan late in the night in St. John's, although early back home. 10:45 here in St. John's, Newfoundland, and the Saskatoon fans got a lot to cheer for. 4 teams from Saskatchewan here this week.
4 from Saskatchewan, 3 from Newfoundland and Labrador, 2 from Ontario, and 1 from Nova Scotia. Here's a little soft roller. Good throw over there by shortstop Jeff Evely for the final out. And Kelly's Pub will go 2-0 on the day with the first game of the day and the last one. They come away with a pair of wins here on day 1 of the 2016 Canadian Men's Fastball Championship. Chris, a good workout for the Kelly's Pub boys.
Yeah, you know what? A big day for them, too. They put up a couple of crooked numbers. I think 10-2 and 6-1 were their wins. So everyone's talking about the defending champs, but with Colin Walsh and Kyle Linton on the mound, could see a repeat of 2014 with a Galway Hitmen Kelly's Pub final, or will somebody else step up? It'll be interesting to see as the week progresses. And we've got day 1 in the books here, Blair, and it's only going to get better.
Well, come back and join us tomorrow. We are planning to be on the air at 9:30 a.m. Newfoundland time. I know that that's earlier for everybody else, but join us here on Ballpark Broadcasting, Sports Canada TV. Still on the diamond over there. It looks like a home run for the Kitchener-Hallman Cubs.
Number 43.
You can follow that one along on Point Streak on the website and Twitter as well. Look for the updates there. But join us tomorrow morning again for all of the action here on Diamond 1 as we bring this to you through softballcanada.tv with our partner, Sports Canada TV. I'm Blair Setford. For Chris Abbott, Lance Wynn, John Hill, and all of our special guests coming up over the course of the week, thanks for being with us tonight.